Basically, obviously, I noticed this is one area where there's like a massive philosophical difference in the community right now. People like, I mean, Monty, I know, for example, is on the other side of this. People like Monty think you shouldn't bother complaining about the ping angle. Like, he thinks, because to him, he looks at the game and he says that, no, there's like fundamental, like, basically knowledge or decision-making things is what's fucking the game up for you. Like, you know, you don't correctly take the Herald, or you don't do something proper with the Baron, or you didn't understand this dragon setup. So to him, he looks at that and he's like, right, that's just about understanding the game. But I know that a lot of people who are players, especially former players, think that actually just the fact that you have to practice on such high solo queue ping, etc., is a massive limiting factor when you contrast it to, I mean, the obvious examples like Korea, where, you know, if you live in Seoul, you basically play on like 8 ping and it's just like basically may as well be LAN. Like, in fact, if anyone's seen Nemesis' stream recently, one of the reasons he also looks way better is he is playing on like fucking 8 ping versus whatever he played on in EU West, you know. He's essentially got a 3 times faster connection or something. Like, it's going to look better, right? What's your take on this then, Wicked? Like, is that the camp you're in, essentially? Like, basically, if the ping's too high, like, it's just going to make even the basic practice and mechanics and stuff worse.
So the problem I have with high ping, right, is you get used to playing matchups wrong and you get used to playing things wrong because you can't push it to the limit. Let's say you're playing against a Malphite, right, and you're 100% confident as an AD carry player, I'll always flash this ability. Then you add 60 ping on top of that, you're like, I can maybe flash it a little bit further away, right? So you can't go in and do auto attacks, and you can't go in and be as aggressive as possible at all times. For example, let's say you're playing Lucian, you know, like, I can probably E this ability, I can just jump away. You won't be able to make those plays that are to the limit. And I think one key player that did this really well, and Mason will probably agree, Forgiven was a player that was actually really good at pushing to the limit and going all the way in to the limit. And you try to catch this guy, and you just flash away at the last second, and he just gets away. And I remember I did reaction time test with Forgiven because I'm really fast myself, reaction time. And he had something ridiculous in reaction time. I was like, this is actually crazy. Like, how is it so low? I think it's 150 or something.
Yeah, people don't know, by the way, I can confirm that. One of the main things about it's why I've always said, right, one of the two other players who are my favourites, and people wonder why I don't criticise these guys, because I've done it a million times privately. Like, you know both. It's Forgiven and Froggen. I can tell you one of the problems with trying to argue with these guys is they're not just guys who are just doing stuff randomly. Like, they have like the best arguments ever for why they did shit in the game. Like, they can always come up with an angle as to why, like, and they always have like some specialist knowledge. So in Forgiven's case, you're absolutely right. If you ever asked Forgiven in a team fight, like, why didn't you just go a little bit more aggressively? You could have killed this guy here. Like, even without having the VOD up, he can just tell you, oh, in that scenario, like, you know, if I step like one step forwards, like this other guy gets some CC on me and I die, like, I have to actually like move back. Like, he was always right. I've went back and looked at loads of the examples. Like, basically, like, that was like one area he had mastered, mate. It was like, he was always like, it's like the meme of what you'd tell a player to do, but obviously no one can just consciously think of this. Like, step into their range to hit them and then out so that after you would open them and hit you. But it's a million times harder to do it in the game, obviously.
Yeah, it's definitely like that. Like, some people are like that, but you can talk about more if you want.
No, but like the thing is, right, when you can't do those plays, you just slowly fall behind. You can't get the poke in that you want early in the team fight. You're going to look a little bit weaker. Maybe you lack 2 abilities in pre-team fight, which you could have gotten in if you practiced on a lower ping scenario. And then maybe that small detail would change the fight. I actually think a lot of people talking about NA being behind. But C9, I don't think they look that bad. I think C9 had probably top 2 bot lane at MSI. The bottom was really strong. I think Blabber had some shaky moments, but if he had more support from his team, if his team had won lanes a little bit harder or been a little bit further ahead, I think the entire MSI would look completely different for C9.
The only thing that worries me though is that like people take this ping excuse and they kind of try to excuse other things with it, right?
Yes.
I mean, to kind of give you a historic kind of like reference, like when we were with Origin the first half year of the 2015 year, right? That we were obviously in the Canada scene, but we kind of developed it as a team. We're actually playing on 80 ping because we're playing from Tenerife. Like, what this meant is obviously we're not gonna be as individual proficient, but we still practice and we still relatively held high elo. Like, I think Niels was like, or Sven was like 1k LP, I was like 700 LP, and the rest was also really high LP, right? And that was with 80 ping, 60 to 80 ping, right? But what we came really good at is just understanding the macro sense of what we had to do, right? So our plays were really cohesive, they were really proficient, and they were just well developed because we argued about those more so than anything else. And I think you can't quite excuse like the ping and use that as an excuse for anything else, because that's circumstances everyone else is playing under, right? So everyone else is playing under the high ping. Obviously, the matchups are not going to be played to the perfect amount, but that doesn't take away from what you have to do as a team and understanding like what kind of like when you have 1-4 when you have to 1-4, how to group, how to position properly. Like that's still inherently there, right? Like you're just gonna play as slightly slower, I would say. That's basically the thing.
So I agree with that take, but I think there's a massive difference between being one of the best teams or being the absolute best team in the world, right? If you want to be the number one team in the world, I think it matters a lot. If you want to be decent in Europe or in NA, then I don't think it really matters that much. I completely agree with you, because other aspects of the game also matters. And in NA, everyone is playing high ping, right? So at that point, it doesn't matter at all for the regional performances.
No, I definitely agree. Like if you obviously want to beat Korea, beat China, like you have to play on a low ping, and you have to really push your matchups to the limit. You have to play, and again, this is a kind of concept that I've also talked about, that I think when you play to playoffs and we play to like really important matches, like your average doesn't matter. If your average is great enough, and if your average is great enough to be the best team in the world, yeah, that's great. Like then you have 5 fakers on your team. But in the usual cases, you just have to play to your perfect level in order to beat any of those Korean or Chinese teams. Otherwise, you just lose. Like, because they will push your matchups every single time. They will skill check you every single time they can. If you're worse than them, they screw you. You can't do anything about it, and you suddenly get give up early game leads that you would usually not give up. So you have to play to the perfect level if you want to beat those best teams in the world. So I agree with you on that one, yeah.